I would like to just jump back into sexual humanism for a little bit and just ask what's next for sexual humanism. This is something that clearly a lot of people like. Clearly, it's something that people are very excited about and are willing to contribute to. So is there anything on the horizon? I know that, Christy, you had an example that you were gonna run with.
Oh, I would love to hear it. Please tell me.
Well, I'm very curious, what maybe phase 2 in your invasion of the hearts and minds of the world might look like. But I was able to catch part of your conversation with Ben Shetler, where you basically took his argument and distilled it down to this idea that that it's inherently homophobic and discriminatory to suggest that homosexuality is a choice and that choice is wrong. And he kind of kept trying to say, well, we're just trying to have a conversation. And you really pointed out, this is a conversation about human rights, and you don't get to say that and then say it's not discriminatory. If I can put words in your mouth and paraphrase you in that way. But you did that in part by proposing this idea that maybe we should have laws against heterosexual intercourse.
I did.
And just go ahead and say, that's wrong, that you shouldn't have sex hetero, that's gross, and why would you, and all of this. And it really inspired me, sort of in the same way that like the Church of Satan has come along and said, we want equal representation under the law. If you're going to do this, then we should be able to put up our own statues next to your, 10 commandments, and has been able to get a lot of traction in that way. And so I just was really tickled by the idea of sexual humanism putting forth these notions of, we should outlaw heterosexual sex and only allow, procreative IVF and these other things. And so I'm just proposing that to you as maybe like step 5 in the invasion plan.
To be very clear, secular sexuality does
the
support all
Atheist
forms of
Community
sex,
and
as
everybody,
does the ACA. But hypothetically, that's an interesting thought experiment.
I just love the notion of framing the argument in the way that you did, by saying that to suggest that, you can be gay, but don't act on it. Is such a discriminatory and inherently hateful statement that's so often said behind this guise of smiles and why can't we all just get along and talk out our differences, because I want to live in that world. I want to live in the world that you describe, where we should be able to discuss our differences in a civil and kind way with people we disagree with. But I don't want to live in a world where it's acceptable to ignore the human rights of some 10, 20% of the world's population.
No, I completely agree with that. It's something that I struggle with too, because I want to get mad, right?
Yeah.
I want to get mad, but I've never changed somebody's mind while I was screaming at them.
Sure.
I never have, but I have changed people's mind by being patient with them before. So I'm trying, it's a skill I'm trying to refine, because it's a difficult line to walk, and you guys do it all the time too here, where you take calls, and sometimes it's very difficult on the spot to be able to be precise in your speech and carefully think things through. And yeah, we've all had that moment where we're like, I should have said that thing. Why didn't I say that thing? Or why did I say that thing? Or, I misspoke. So I completely get you on that's the world I want to live in. But one of the things that I always say is that your goals need to align with your intentions, and you need to future project in order to figure out whether those intentions are going to land on your goals. And whenever I future project a conversation, which is something that I attempt to do, I'm a scenario runner. I run scenarios in my head ahead of time regarding conversations and regard just about everything, and to the point of almost absurdity, really, to be honest with you. But
I feel that.
He's got me.
I'd like to just give a shout out to my therapist who really helped me get past that. That was very much me for a great many years.
My brain is way too quiet if I didn't do that.
Mm-hmm. Right, I'd just be sitting still. I would be paralyzed. I'd know where to go or what to do.
Frees
But
up more
yeah,
bandwidth to fantasize about sex.
There you go.
well, there you go.
I'm
Like I could
putting
use
that-
some
that
more
computing
bandwidth.
power- yeah, I'm putting that computing power to good use. I assure you.
But when I do that, like, and it does take all kinds. So I think that there are other strategies that are incredibly effective too. But I'd like to think that my strategies, even though it's open to fair criticism, and I want to be able to refine it, I'm not as open to the critiques that, you're not harsh enough, because I think that there's a lot of those conversations that are engaged in harshly, and sometimes, and it's not even about the person that you're conversing with. A lot of the times it's about the people that are listening, that they may be reached by an approach where they feel like you're understanding the points of the interlocutor and still are pushing back despite the fact that you understand. Whereas if you're approaching a little bit more aggressively, the people can push aside that you understand, and then they can shut down.
Mhm.
So, but I love the idea of like making a campaign where I point out the hypocrisy, just the innate hypocrisy of saying, I'm not a bigot for saying that you shouldn't be able to have the rights that I have, because who you are is inherently wrong and you should be like me. But
Yeah,
I'd need
I'm
to
not-
find a way to wrap that around not hetero shaming either, because all
Well,
sexualities
yeah, I
are
mean,
valid,
something-
including
I'm
hetero.
definitely a fan
I'm
of
bi.
heterosexual sex. I'm hoping to have some heterosexual sex later tonight if I'm lucky. But yeah, I think it is something that gets missed, and something that I'm not trying to relitigate a video that nobody else is watching while they're here with us, but that you let him skirt around was this idea that
Oh, yeah, I'd love to hear this.
without heterosexual sex, or without, a world in which people were 90% gay or whatever else, that generations would cease to exist, that humanity would not be able to procreate, which I find...
Did you watch where I said we would all do in vitro fertilization?
Yeah, and that's a good comeback, but I feel like I hear that all the time. If we had an island that was nothing but lesbians and blah, 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 we wouldn't... Humanity finds a way. Life finds a way. I mean, sexuality finds a way. There are plenty of gay people that are having heterosexual intercourse and having children and everything else. And I guess I just want to take a more expansive view on these labels and definitions, and recognize that you can be, I mean, as Laura pointed out, a lesbian with a penis, with the ability to have, male gametes and everything else. And so there are plenty of opportunities for quote unquote gay people to procreate and have sex and have sexuality in a way that, our society, our species is not about to die out.
For me, it's even funnier when they bring in the whole gender identity thing, because I'll have conversations. I've had conversations with family members who are very concerned that the gender binary is breaking down, and I'm like, well, why? Okay, worst case scenario for you. Okay, imagine your worst scenario where nobody identifies as anything. We're still going to procreate. Like, we're still going to get up in the morning.
You still
and go
have
to
like a
work
50-50 chance, right? At that point?
It's not, there's nothing stopping people from continuing to live exactly as we are living, even in your worst case nightmare scenario. But
we won't be able to use the color of your outfit to know what your junk looks like.
Right?
And
It's
that is
disturbing.
just a terrifying world, I guess.
So, not being able to imagine other people's genitalia the second you meet them, those very, very sex crazy.
I'm gonna start crying again. Don't. I know how to live. Christy, that's a really good criticism. I just want you to know that I appreciate that criticism. That's something I'm gonna take on board, and I thank you for it, because it's not something that came to mind in the moment, and it's something that would have been beneficial in that dialogue, and something I should think about more. So I appreciate you bringing it to the forefront of my mind. So thank you.
And I mean, in the moment, it's certainly not even a critique. I don't know that it was necessarily even germane to the conversation. I just know that I hear that argument over and over and over, that homosexuality can't be natural because it would mean the end of our species, which is just ludicrous in so many ways. I mean, never mind the fact that there are so many animals animals that have homosexual relationships. We just spoke to an expert about such a thing last week. But anyway, I just think that's an important ideal to push back against.
Yeah, one thing I was thinking, something else the Satanic Temple, I believe, is doing now in Georgia, perhaps. And I think it was the Satanic Temple.
Not the Church of Satan.
Some people were pointing that out. I did that before I watched Hail Satan, and now I won't forget.
Yeah, no, I didn't speak there.
But what they would do is they would say the 6-week abortion bans were unconstitutional because it went against their religion.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love them.
Yeah, right?
My
was like, that
religion
makes
says
so much
abort
sense.
now.
Right? Being able to access safe abortion is part of their religion. And if
That's
you are
amazing.
restricting that, then they have a right to call that out. So maybe something along those lines, since you guys are a religion,
That's brilliant.
Yeah, isn't that so interesting? I found that so fun.
That is fascinating. And I've actually had people contact me about how, and this is frightening too. I discovered this when I was doing the Christian counseling series as well, how abjectly easy it is to get an ordination and establish a church, really. So I'm actually looking into what it would entail to even establish a church, and whether or not I could do so internationally, if I would have to do it in Canada, if I would have to do it in the States, if I'd have to do it in both. I had somebody reach out to me on Discord the other day. I actually have to write them back, who's like one of like 4 or 5 people who I gave, the fun ordinations to. That it's like, I'm going to go get this in writing and put it on my wall and marry people with this ordination.
Nice.
And that is fascinating to me. Like, if I can figure out a way to do that and people can just ordain themselves online and officially and start officiating
Yes.
religious typically religious ceremonies, that would be ideal. So I was looking into that just because I think it would be fantastic to have people who are just good people that want to be supportive of human rights all over the world, just being able to ordain themselves in a religion of everyone that's accepting of all, and start being able to do those things for people that may find it more difficult to find an officiant, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah. So I was thinking that might be a cool thing to do, but I don't know all what it entails. But I really, really like the idea of, if I could do that, a good next step would be writing tenets for a religion that could directly contradict. Yeah, you guys are giving me great ideas. These are great ideas. I'm so glad I came. Thank you. You're hired.
I love it.
My new think tank.
Yes.